been knowingly living with rare disease for just a few years. And prior to that, I lived a fairly healthy life with no knowledge of really the existence of rare disease, I think, and certainly not the ones that I've been diagnosed with now. And my life has completely changed. So that whereas before I used to be very much a social butterfly, I used to enjoy throwing big parties, having people around for dinner parties, and being out in the community, in my church, down the gym 3 times a week. And then things started to change. And it was at the end of COVID, so you weren't able very easily to see a GP. And I used to speak to them on the phone about various complaints. And then one day I had a rash, and I sent the picture in, which they like you to do, take a photo, send it in. And that particular fairly young GP said no, she wanted to see me. She said, well, you know, I think that you may have a rare disease, something like scleroderma, which I didn't know anything about at all. So we're going to do some blood tests and we'll take it from here and we'll see if we can get to the bottom of it. So she did a referral to rheumatology after getting some bloods, and also to the Rapid Diagnosis Centre. I read up about scleroderma and thought, oh yeah, that's interesting. I can see where she's coming from, but I also thought that I might have something called Sjogren. I ended up in hospital twice. Once they diagnosed pericarditis and once myocarditis. And when they heard that I had a possible scleroderma thing, they kind of said, oh, that's probably what caused it then. So I thought, now I've had the heart events, that will bump me up the list, but it didn't. So I actually went to a private rheumatologist after that, who wrote to the rheumatology department and said, this woman needs to be seen. I think she has a connective tissue disease, and these are the tests I think should be done. And then I ended up at my hospital and met a really lovely rheumatologist who was so kind, who gave me lots of time, listened to me, and she said, okay, we don't know what's going on, but we're determined to find out. Did loads more blood tests and talked about scleroderma. But she wasn't convinced, because it wasn't really showing in my bloods very much, that that was what it was. So she did more tests and we carried on, as it were. At the same time, the fact that the Rapid Diagnosis Centre had done a CT scan, it had shown problems in my lungs. They thought bronchiectasis. So I saw a respiratory consultant, and then there came a day when I was supposed to be having a joint consultation, rheumatology and respiratory. And the week before, I should have realised that something was up, because both consultants rang me on different days to check I was coming. And they both told me that the Wales-wide group of respiratory consultants had looked at my CT scan and felt I had a rare disease called bronchiolitis obliterans, caused by autoimmune disease, possibly scleroderma. And so it's take you into hospital today and put you on the one medication that we think might work for you, for both the bronchiolitis obliterans and also for the scleroderma, if that's what it is. We're not sure if it's going to work, but we want to put you onto a high dose of steroids at the same time while we wait for the med to take its chance working. It can take 3 to 6 months or even up to a year to work, and at the rate that my lung the disease had progressed, I might not be around that much longer, as it were, so I needed to go in then. And they asked me how I felt about that, and I said, well, actually, relieved. I think it's really important for awareness about rare diseases to be raised higher and higher. I find it mind-boggling to know that 300 million people in the world have rare disease. So that's something like 1 in 17. That's a heck of a lot of people. And I think that every GP surgery should have somebody in the practice that understands rare disease. Something that I heard from medics for rare diseases, they say that the zebra has been chosen as a mascot for rare disease because medical students used to be told that just because you hear hoofbeats doesn't mean the patient's a zebra. I'd like to add on end of that, but they could be, because they could. And maybe we need to change that around now. Actually think so many people do have rare disease. Maybe we need to just dig a little deeper when somebody comes in with a condition and you think, well, actually, that is something with a high possibility that it could be something else going on as well.